Election, of course, this weekend, a three-day weekend coming there, as Ashley Webster told you about earlier here. President Obama has already weighed into this. He's going to be backing the centrist candidate, Emmanuel Macron. But, you know, when it comes to picking candidates, let's just say the former president is not really always 100% accurate. Take a look.
Our focus is in negotiating with a big bloc, the European Union, to get a trade agreement done. And UK is going to be in the back of the queue.
I continue to believe Mr. Trump will not be president. And the reason is because I have a lot of faith in the American people.
All right. 0 for 2. Former strategy director to David Cameron, the British Prime Minister, Steve Hilton. Steve, what do you think of that? With the president risking weighing himself into this election, he could make it just 0 for 3 and a complete strikeout here. Or things change. What do you think?
I don't know. As you say, he doesn't have a very good track record. I don't think this is going to help Macron at all. It'll probably hurt him a little bit. What's interesting, actually, about this endorsement is that he's actually picking the more conservative candidate. When you compare Le Pen and Macron on economic policy, she's way to the left. And what it really shows is that I think those old divides of left and right in politics are increasingly redundant. What you see with Obama endorsing Macron is the elites sticking together, the insiders sticking together. The real divide, I think, is between the elites and the populists. And I think that's what this shows, because the old left-right thing just doesn't apply to this election.
Steve, do you think there's any truth to the argument that some have made in the European press? I don't read all of it, but the stuff that gets to me, that maybe Donald Trump's rocky start, I think it's, for example, the last 50 days have been a lot better than the first 50 days. Having said that, the bumpy start and his low poll numbers here, so far, that could change, have actually hurt the populist case and maybe helped Macron in that case. What do you think?
I do think there's something to that. And of course, you've got to understand that just as here, that most of the media in Europe want to see populism fail. They wanted to report the rocky start. And so all of the negative things were magnified, just as here, and the successes not telegraphed at all. So I think that there's definitely an element of that. But I think in the end, these elections, we've seen that in the Netherlands and now in France, you know, they've all got particular characteristics. And I think the interesting thing, frankly, is that Marine Le Pen is doing so well at all. There's something really deep going on in all of these countries that's giving rise to these populist movements. And even if they don't break through everywhere in this cycle, I just think this movement is not going away, because the underlying reasons for it, the economic failure of the last few decades that have left so many people struggling to find a job, to pay the bills, to kind of afford the basics of a decent life, all of those factors are still there.
Do you think, Steve, that most Europeans, because to read the press, they still say, well, we don't want to say goodbye to the European Union. We like the concept of it. We just don't think it's implemented well. That's what they're wrestling with, that there's a lot of things they like about it all being part of saying, well, you travel back and forth between countries, maybe the same currency, I don't know what, but some are thinking, do we really want to give all of this up? What's the deal?
Look, I was very much for Brexit. I went back to, I live here in America now, as you know, and I went back to the UK to campaign for Brexit.
Right.
But I would be the first to say that the starting point for the EU, which is the idea of a single market to make it easier to trade and travel, that's a good thing. But the problem is that the EU itself as an institution has just kept demanding more and more power. And actually, the leaders of the EU, particularly in the bureaucracy, their vision is of a united one country, no borders, no sovereignty at the national level. That's really what they believe. And so when you hear someone like Macron who's saying in his campaign, look, we know there are problems with the EU, it's too bureaucratic, it's too centralized, we're going to reform the EU, but we're going to stay in it. That's a message that people would like to see happen, but people have been saying that for decades, and it's never happened. I remember when I first got into politics back in the early 90s, working at the Conservative Party headquarters, that was the message then from the British Conservative government with Margaret Thatcher. We're going to reform the EU, we're going to get rid of all the bureaucracy that we don't like and keep the free trading stuff that we do like. That's just totally at odds with the vision of the people who run the EU.
I know I'm going to make my producers angry. I was curious, when you were with Cameron, was there any hint at all at the time that Brexit could go down to defeat? Some polls had it fairly close. It was a seesaw, but I got the feeling that obviously the whole European community was shocked, but what had been missed? The reason why I'm asking is because I'm saying, are we missing something now in France?
I think that he absolutely didn't believe that it would ever happen, and he believed that actually he'd gone and negotiated a deal to reform the UK's relationship with the EU,
right,
and that deal was a good deal that he could project as something that would mean that it's okay to stay in because we're going to get rid of some of the bad things. That just wasn't really true, and I think he was overconfident in his ability to negotiate a good deal. He didn't, and then he was stuck with the decision that he'd made.
Yeah.
But he never imagined that it would lead to this.
Interesting stuff. Enjoy having you on. Steve Hilton, thank you very much.